third one to lean on it.
I did say if we put 3 chairs out, but people are going to think someone's not turned up. But no, that's because we have a couple of people to interview later. But don't longingly look at that chair and think there should be someone there.
Maybe it should be you. Maybe you're
should we volunteer someone? No, let's not do that. That could go chaotically, wouldn't it? It could be better than you. Yeah, it could be. That is possible. So how have you been? I've seen you in a while so far.
I'm good, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm not. Inkle is 13 years old now, which for an indie studio is not bad actually. We're quite odd in that we're self-published, we're self-funded. It's very nice to start a day clapping for a bank. That doesn't happen very often, does it?
Without banks, we're all mixed up.
Well, that's true. Generally, we do actually bank with Barclays.
Do you? Oh my word. Yeah. That's not why you're a speaker, though.
No. Anyway, what was I talking about? Okay, so going back 13 years, we're kind of quite, if you don't know us, we're quite small. Like at the moment, there's 3 of us. In the past, we have been as large as 8, which was pretty daunting. We didn't like that very much, so after a while, people drifted off to other things, and we kind of shrunk down to a more manageable size. But the reality is we kind of expanded and contracted whenever we have busy periods, and we can kind of fall back to kind of a core 3. We're in a kind of more pre-production phase. So that's where we are at the moment. But it has a nice kind of community feel to it. It's quite a sort of creative first environment.
It was quite tight in the room with 8 of you, wasn't it? Are you in the same building?
No, we're fully remote now, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay.
About 5-6 years ago, we had a co-working space on Burley Street, you know, it's near the Grafton Centre. For about 4 years. And then, before it was fashionable, we decided that offices were a waste of time, whether like we moved to our houses, and then everybody else kind of
followed suit.
Yeah, there was something like that.
In many ways, obviously. Can I just check, can everyone hear both of us talking? Are we getting loud enough?
If not, they could just move forward.
They could do, but perhaps not down here. This will be a bit intimidating.
Yeah, what's that? Why do I want to talk to that guy? I'm craning my neck. This is a really steep auditorium.
It didn't used to have these orange cushions in. Last time I came here, it was just a basis. Shall we focus? Yeah. Okay. So you've done a bit of backstory, but I suppose what I'm interested in, we talk about the life of being an indie and some of the good and the bad stuff. We'll do a bit of both if that's all right. It might not be any bad, might not be any good, but we'll have a look at that. But when you started, was there a plan? Was there a master plan? Did you with your co-founder, one other?
Yeah, my co-founder, Joseph Humphrey. Yes, that absolutely was a master plan. So we started in 2011. When the iPad 2 had just come out and was taking the world by storm, and everybody was loving it, and people were standing at bus stops saying, "Oh, I wonder what new apps are available today." And book publishers were producing £10 iPad apps based on books about the solar system or about orchestras. Well, there was one particular one that I always remember, which was based on the T.S. Eliot poem "The Wasteland," which is a fairly obscure piece of literature. And they made it into this £10 app, which had recordings by Patrick Stewart, Julian Stevenson, and various other luminaries reading out the poetry of The Wasteland. And they sold it for £10, and they sold like 150,000, 200,000. So book publishing is pretty much an astronomical number. There are million selling books, and then there are no selling books. But this is a good middle ground. They were very, very happy with that. And we looked at this, Joe and I, from working inside a PlayStation studio at the time, and thought, these people have absolutely no idea what they're doing with interactivity. They have no idea what they're doing with technology. They have no idea what they're doing with narrative. This is such an open goal for someone who has any understanding of this stuff. So we thought, our master plan, we'll leave Sony, we'll take all of our knowledge and understanding of interactivity, move it into the iPad space, approach normal people who aren't interested in games, give them interactive literature experiences that they never been possible, and just win. Just win. That was the plan. We don't do that anymore. It sort of worked for a while. Like our very first thing was very much made with a book publisher. It presented itself as a book, we marketed it as a book, and we discovered that book people don't like games and game people don't like books, and that was the big problem. So we've sort of been on this slow oil tanker style pivot into making games that look and market and read like games, but still have this kind of narrative heart, narrative component behind them. Some of them more bookish, like 80 Days, which is probably still our most famous game that's 10 years old now. through to the game we released in December, which was a highlight song, which is actually a platformer with a lot of narrative going on in it. And I think people who just play platforms would play a highlight song and go, I don't understand the balance of this game. It's weirdly not a platformer, and yet it's clearly a platformer, but that's because of where it comes from. It's actually trying to tell the story through the medium of jumping. Good idea, bad idea, up to you.
Well, we talked about how, you know, I guess the plan has changed then, but it's, in many ways, a lot of the other creative industries still don't understand how to tell a story. So some things haven't changed, but you pivoted. Are you, I mean, we're perhaps projecting the future a little bit here, but where do you think you're going to be steered in the future? Perhaps in the short term, just thinking about our audience, thinking about, I mean, they're not going to show you your toes into your market, so it's safe to tell them. Where are we going?
I think that's a really interesting question. The reality is that running a small studio, we are constantly asking ourselves that question, thinking about that question. Where do we go next? Where is the sunlight now? Because the sunlight is constantly moving and you have to follow it. Like we were in iPhone to iPad for a while, and then the very large publishers came and dominated that space with free-to-play games. It's extraordinarily difficult to compete against those guys. We still do a bit there, but we mostly moved over onto Steam. Steam became this huge monstrosity that used to be very supportive of indies and now is really just interested in being a Walmart again. It has very little interest in indies. If they sell, great. If they don't really care. And I understand that, but it's unhelpful for us. So we find ourselves saying, okay, we're still publishing on Steam, where can we go now? We're doing a lot of work on Switch at the moment because we've managed to build some relationships with Nintendo, and that works very well for us. It gives us a great environment, but Nintendo don't have great long tail sales in the way that Steam does.
Yeah.
For a small company, that's really important. So we're constantly asking these questions, trying to just look around and say, okay, where are the places which are oversaturated, and where are the places where there's a gap right now? And ironically, I mean, I do, but ironically, I'm looking back at the iPhone at the moment and thinking, nobody's making good, simple, premium, accessible experiences for the iPhone. You've still got one in your pocket. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not making games that cost £1.50? They're better than Twitter. They promise you a much more interesting experience than TikTok will. That maybe feels like an interesting place to go. Again, so perhaps we'll pivot back around to that. I'm actually not sure.
I've sort of jumped to the final question, haven't I? That's where we came in the end, but it just kind of fell out actually, just as we were talking. But I'm interested in this sort of mobile thing in particular. Again, you know, not something I thought we'd be talking about. So I'm interested in that. There is a movement, a constant movement from premium to free on mobile and then back again. Do you think we could be heading back into a paid-for model at the moment?
No, I wouldn't want to go that strong. I don't think they're heading back to the paid-for model. And when the iPhone was new, the paid-for model was the only model, and it was very successful. We will never see that again.
Okay.
But I don't need us as a collective to move back to something for it to be the right place for my company and my mates. I need enough space that we can survive. So is there enough space for a small company to make something really quality on the mobile? Yeah, I think there might be. How many companies is that? Is that 5? Is that 500? Is that 5,000? Probably not 50,000. I have no idea. I don't know. But I do think that one of the things that's kept us going for the last 13 years is that we don't stop asking this question. Like, we haven't ever gone into that rut of, well, we make a game on Steam, it does well, let's make the sequel, let's make the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, oh, people stop buying it, and now we're dead. But, because that feels like a genuine risk to me, and I would rather carry on doing this indie, created in different markets in different ways, than repeatedly make the same product until different, right? And we probably will never blow up making games on huge franchises. It's just not what we're capable of. So.
You say you don't make the same kind of products, but what you do are games that are beautiful, they're thought-provoking, and they're fun. Do you have a favourite? You've got for loads of awards. I mean, I always see you up there for BAFTAs and things like that, which are premium independent games. You're bloody good. But it's a bit like asking who your favourite child is. Do you have a favourite game that you've worked on? What?
So,
why?
I will answer that. I just, before I do, I guess the thing, for me, the thing that makes sense is the games have a kind of common heart, right? A common sensibility. I often think running a studio is a bit like running a band, like in the 90s. You make an album, you make another album, you try different things. Sometimes they go big, sometimes everyone hates it, and just keep going. So when you look back on that, and you say, well, do I have a favourite game? I depends how I'm feeling, really.
Is it?
You know, because I like them all for different reasons, and I dislike them for different reasons. There were frustrations in every one. If I had to pick one, I would always choose Heavenfall because it was our biggest and our most ambitious, and we created this whole world, and I ended up writing a novel based on the world because I liked it so much, and I would love to make the TV series, and I would love to go back to that world again.
You create a whole language.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so you don't think it's by half, do you?
So it was a game built on the idea of space archaeology, because we'd never seen that before. Obviously, the Outer Wilds then came out like a month before our game, which was really irritating, but whatever. And so we were thinking about things that archaeologists did, which shows the way that we built games. We went away and thought about archaeology rather than thinking about game mechanics or loops or anything like that. Certainly not monetization. And came up with this idea of translating a hieroglyphic language as an activity that a player can do, which would be narratively meaningful. So it's a puzzle, effectively, but every time you solve it, you don't get a reward, you get a little bit more information about this world that you're exploring, which is just inherently valuable if you can. If you don't care, you won't play our game, that's fine. Which turned out to be quite a good design strategy, it went quite well, and it did require building a whole language, but we very much cheated. And it is a language you can write anything in within the vocabulary. It's not a language that any human being would ever actually invent in an organic process, but we built that into the world to cover our asses with that. So it all works out.
Well, I know you built a language, and that's all that matters.
That's it, yeah. So high level, we built an entire language. Here we go.
People know that. Moving. What about, so you have picked one of your games, but if you had to pick someone else's game, is there a game in the market that you're a bit like, you know, I wish I'd worked on that?
I always find this really difficult.
You don't have to answer it, it's big option.
It's because as a designer, when I look at games, I very rarely like them.
Right.
Because normally, if I like something, that's sort of annoying because I don't know what to do about it. If I play a game that's great, I go, well, great, that's something I can't do. So I'll just have to do something else now. Whereas what I find much more useful, and so I focus on, is games that I don't like or that are broken or frustrating. Okay. You play something and you go, oh, that's really, they missed such an obvious trick there, or they've done that wrong, or
You're missing the whole game experience. The idea is to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'm not really interested in that. One day when I'm old, maybe I'll go back and play all these games that everybody else raves about and be like, wow, this is amazing. But what I tend to find actually is that when people do play games, they really have rose-tinted glasses. We do a lot of compensation as players for the inadequacies of the game because we're hyped, or we're just excited, or we're just in the mode. Like, I played Red Dead Redemption about 5 years after it came out. At the time, everyone in the office I worked was just like, oh, I've been a cowboy, I've seen things. And you go back and play it, it's a really clumsy, clunky, slow, boring game. It's not very good. But that's because I played it after the hype up started to and I could see what it was, which was clumsy. And I told this to my friends, and they were like, oh, I've seen it. And you go, and the games that we play in our heads are totally different from the games that are actually happening on the screen, which is why people outside the game look at games and go, what are you doing? That's why they're doing it. They genuinely are telling you what they see. It's like when I played Uncharted with my wife, and she was like, what did all these people do to you? Why are you? And I was like, it's not like that. She was like, but that's perfect. And they can't get, people normally, they can't get past that because they're right, actually.
So Normans. Everyone plays games these days, so there's no such thing as a normie.
Well, actually, my wife doesn't.
Doesn't play games. Does she play Uncharted? I bet she's got phones on her mobile. No, games on her mobile.
Anyway, going on. Let's focus.
Yes, so, is it me or you? What really is at the heart of your company now? And I've got all these lovely questions, but really what I'll find out is where on earth do your ideas come from? You're an ideas company. You talked about always thinking differently, not looking at what you've done before. So it's all narrative, it's beautiful. Where on earth? Because people out there, you've had more ideas probably in a week than they've had in their lives. How can they channel some of that?
Yeah, no, I think that's wrong actually. I think ideas are actually they're cheap and easy. Like most creative people have 3-4 good ideas a day. They just pop in and pop out. And some of them you remember, and some of them you go, oh, I thought something and I thought something, that's fine. The trick, or the thing that we try to do, is to make sure that the ideas are really, really robust before we actually build them. So, a good idea is a good idea, and you think, oh, someone could make a movie out of that, and it would be great. But that person isn't me. Well, okay, so that idea to me is useless, and I throw it away straight away. Right. So I'm always looking for what are the ideas which fit me as a writer, that I actually want to write. What are the ideas that fit my company in terms of scope? There's no point us designing or having the idea for No Man's Sky because we can't build it. It's gone there. Okay, what are the ideas that are going to excite an audience who aren't interested in our budget limitations? They just want a good thing, and they want a thing that looks like it was properly made, not kind of half-heartedly made and then cut because we couldn't afford to do most of it. So how do we find an idea that just solves all of those problems elegantly? And usually we don't. What we find are 2 or 3 ideas that fit together. Right. And so what we're actually doing almost all the time is this idea that we were talking about over here connected with that idea that we were talking about over here. But if we put them together, suddenly that will work. And that we can make into a thing. So, and you see that in all of our games. I think all of them, Highland is the most recent game, and it's got some platforming animation stuff that Joe was playing with ages back. It has parallax layers to suggest a 3D space, but it's only actually 2D, which is significantly cheaper to build, but still looks great if you do it well. We've been playing with parallax from the iPhone days, and so on and so on and so on, and the way the narrative works, the way the music works. These are all just different ideas that have glued together, and obviously other ideas in the way we've been. So I think people, especially when they're new, especially when they're starting out, can often sit there and say, right, I just need one really good idea and it's going to save me. And then they sit there and go, I need a good idea. I haven't had a good idea. I'm doing this is not going to work. Nobody has a good idea. What you need are 50 pretty shitty ideas and then some realistic analysis of what actually is going to work. So again, a piece of advice I often give to younger people when I meet them who say, oh, you like narrative, did you like Disco Elysium? I want to write Disco Elysium. Don't attempt to do that. Just don't bother. If you liked it, steal one thing from it that it did really well and then do that. But I try to do a whole thing because it's too complicated. There's too many ideas in that thing, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think we talk a lot about ideas in the same way that we talk about brilliant creatives, auteurs, and it's great marketing. You should play Inkle games, they're full of incredible ideas. We're such great artists, but it's not very helpful to actually, you're drawing a picture, you have to draw every bloody line in the picture. You don't just have an idea and write it down and you're
I'm waiting for my good 3 or 4 ideas. I don't think I've had any yet.
I'm sorry.
Maybe a couple more than right before the end of the day. Fascinating. What I'm particularly, that's at the core of the company, but you do make things look, I'm going to say relatively easy, but I doubt it's been easy over the years. If you go for 13 years, that's a good time. It can't always be easy.
No.
Let's think about people in the room who might be embarking on something or in the middle of something. What are the sort of the challenges? And this is right at the end of my question, we're ending on a low here. Sorry. What are sort of the challenges and maybe you've got some advice and guidance for getting around this? Or is it a piece of cake if you do it well?
No, it's always hard work, isn't it? I think it's a difficult question to answer generically because the challenges are so specific to the thing that you're doing, right? If you're working with a big team of people, that can be challenging because people can be complicated.
Yeah.
With a remote team, you can often get some brilliant skill from around the world, but then you have to deal with time zones, and that can be frustrating, whatever. If you're trying to balance the scope of your game against the detail of your game as a small company, that's frustrating because you always want to add new things. You don't actually really want to quality assess the thing that you built, and you always need to, and it always breaks way more than you want it to because computers don't work very well. So those things, you're constantly in this fighting, this cycle of trying to kind of manage everything all at once in a way that means you're not accidentally causing problems for yourself down the line. And there isn't a magic solution to that, apart from to just be very paying attention to what you're doing, listen to the advice of the people that you work with. Don't try to lead the environment that you don't know anything about. Right? When we built Inkle, that was our team of 8 to 10 people. Right? We had an art team, we had a sound team, we had a technical artist, and I was the guy in the office who was technically the boss. And occasionally people would say, "What should we do about this technical art pipeline problem?" I had absolutely no idea. And on a bad day, I would tell them what to do, because I was worried that they weren't going to do anything and that we needed to do something. And quite often this could waste enormous amounts of time. And people get really irritated and come back 3 days later and say, "Why did you tell me to do this thing? It couldn't possibly work." Well, I didn't know. And on a good day, you say, "I don't know, what should we do?" And the person tells you, and then they go away and do it, and that kind of thing. And you can often feel when you are managing other people, and you're slightly bigger than just a sort of person on your own, that somehow you're supposed to have answers that you don't.
Yeah.
You can never put them to something you don't. Then again, when you're a small team, sometimes there are things you need to do that you don't know how to do. So when should you just go and learn it? Like if you're going to publish on Steam, just go and learn how to publish on Steam. You don't need publishers to publish the buttons. It's easy. You might need one for funding, you don't need it for the buttons on Steam. It's just a thing you learn it. But actually, if you want to do a shader effect, your coder might not be able to do that because that's a particular way of thinking. And finding those, which any amount of networking, any amount of is the only way to solve that, because there will be someone who can tell you exactly the right thing to do, just find that person. So if I was to drill all of that down to one piece of advice, that would be collaborate always.
Yeah. Confidence in your own skills to go and explore things by the sound of it, but then collaboration is the key when you don't have the answers.
Yeah, so find the questions and then find people who can answer the questions.
I was going to ask you about ink, but I'll see if there are any questions from the audience. We've got time for a single question. If not, I'll ask you about ink. I'll probably put them off saying, because I'm sure they'll want to hear about ink. Are you sticking around afterwards?
I haven't decided.
Okay, well, if you really need John, you could grab them afterwards very quickly, or get in touch with me and I'll connect you to follow up. But tell us a little bit about ink. What is it? Why did you create it? What do we know?
Rough straw poll, how many people actually know what ink is? Right, you guys win. One of the first things we did when we founded the company, we wanted to make narrative content, and we looked at the writing tools that were out there and decided they were all sort of rubbish. But actually producing written content and editing it and adapting it and making it good. Tools are really important for enabling creators to do their work. If you can't write in a decent tool, you can't write well, you have to be incredibly skilled to do that, and it's hard. That's the idea. So ink was our attempt to design a way of writing inherently branching content in a way that you can just write, and more importantly, you can redraft and edit as efficiently as you would redraft and edit a Word document. In my opinion, we succeeded. We built this tool and designed it and have been using it in every game for 14 years. About 7 years ago, we built it properly because the actual code was terrible, but the design was good. We built a proper actual engine and we open sourced it. So it's available now for free. You can download it on GitHub. It's been used by an unknown number of projects because people don't always tell us, but there's something in the order of 100, 200 successful release titles. In varying ways, some people use it just to put their kind of dialogue content into a text format document. Getting appropriate, other people write branching narratives like ours, other people feed it into platformers like us. But it's, I kind of love it, which is a weird thing to say about something that you build. But every year I discover another sort of thing that you can do. It's got just enough flexibility in the way that it structures stuff. You think, well, if I put this with this, and so literally last week I discovered that it has this syntax. This is really nerd. I'm sorry, it has this syntax called we, right, which is basically bullet point lists for choices. Because when you're writing in Word, as a script writer, you write blah, 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 and then when you want to do choices, you do a bullet point list, and you say that's the first one, that's the second, and third. So our genius idea was, what if the computer could just read that directly, instead of some programmer having to turn it into logic? That seemed like an obvious thing to do, so we did it. And then we said, okay, well, what if this choice has a sub-choice? So we used a double-pointed bullet point list, right? 1 asterisk and then 2 asterisks. Again, it's not genius, but it works. Well, I just discovered last week in Ink, because of a bug, if you don't have a 1-level asterisk, but you go straight to a 2-level asterisk, this is super niche, then it grabs that bit of content, but then also carries on going, so you can fork the flow of your game. But if you do this choice, then it catches up, which means you can put in side choices along. I didn't know I could do that. So I've been leaning on it quite heavily in our current game. I told Joe, I found a bug, he was like, okay, I'll get around to fixing it. And I was like, don't fix this, actually, this is amazing. So, yeah, I love it. I keep discovering things that
There's nothing wrong with being proud of something.
I love it. It's so exciting. And one of the nice things about open sourcing it is I get to say I love this thing without a kind of, and you can't fucking have it attached at the end of it. It's like, I meet people from Obsidian occasionally. They have a really good narrative tool, and they're always telling me how good their narrative tool is, and then they go, it's ours.
We're now 3 minutes over.
Sorry,
but I think that was a really nice conclusion, open source sharing. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much, John.